June the 6th, 1944, the Normandy landings, rightly considered one of the major turning points of the Second World War, and in fact one of the most famous amphibious operations in all of military history. But as successful as those landings were, in the weeks that followed, the Allies became bogged down in the difficult Bokage Country of Normandy, the deep ditches and the hedges favouring the German defenders. What was really required was a plan to break out of Normandy into France. That's where Operation Cobra arises, this great plan to break through the German defences. And I'm on the ferry to France at the moment to go and visit a team of archaeologists who are actually shedding fascinating new light on this lesser well-known operation and understanding the stories of the individuals who were fighting in those battles. This might look like a beautiful, tranquil beach today, but on the 6th of June 1944, it was a very different place to be. This is Omaha Beach, where some of the American forces were landing during D-Day, the invasion of Normandy. You can imagine the landing craft down here bringing men ashore, artillery shells from the naval guns flying overhead. There was a lot of hard fighting here. Eventually, of course, the Allies were successful. They made a beachhead and started to bring more and more troops and equipment ashore.
Over the following days and weeks, 160,000 Allied troops with tanks and artillery were delivered onto mainland France to take the fight to the Germans. With Allied forces now secure on the invasion beaches, the plan was to rapidly move inland through Normandy, with the American armies pushing west towards Brittany and British and Canadian armies pushing towards the key strategic town of Caen. However, a rapid breakout did not take place, and the Allied advance very soon ground to a halt. Normandy is Bokage Country, a patchwork of pastoral fields broken up by ancient hedgerows, ditches and sunken roads. And this agricultural landscape was to prove an enormous headache for the invasion forces. The battle for Normandy was as fierce as it was slow, the fighting in the Bokage often hand to hand, field by field. Progress was often measured in yards. What the Allied generals needed was a plan to smash through the German defences and break out into the open country beyond. Cameron Ross is the director of the Archaeology of Operation Cobra project, leading a field investigation into this little-known but vital component of the battle for Normandy.
The idea was they were going to punch a hole in the German defence. They had a rough idea where the German defence was. It stretched right across the peninsula, but it was just south of the D900 road, which was from Saint-Lô to Perrières on that side. And it was like a long, straight Roman road. So they based it off that. So we're going to bomb a section 6 kilometres by 4 kilometres wide, just south of the D900. We're going to obliterate it with carpet bombs, which will basically create a hole in the German defence. And then we're going to punch through that hole with these newly created armoured divisions.
In order to secure their gains against German counterattacks, numerous defensive positions and roadblocks were set up on strategic crossroads, where heavy firefights and battles often occurred with retreating German units. Cameron and his team are following the movement of the 2nd Armoured Division and investigating a series of intersection positions along the D38 road.
And sort of where are we in terms of the overall operation?
It's pivotal, this area, for the success of Operation Cobra, these intersection sites. We're on one of the biggest ones, a place called La Pinetière. So we're just north of Saint-Denis-Legas down here and south of Rancy, and the 2nd Armoured are travelling down the D38 road.
Okay, great.
And the Americans occupied all the crossroads coming down the D38 road. It's pivotal to try and outflank the Germans. And this field particularly was the setup of the 78th Armoured Field Artillery Units. They're mobile artillery units. They're firing 105 millimeter howitzers. And now we're in this orchard, as guarding the main road that's coming down here, the D27. The direction of the Germans are coming behind us down the road. They're in flight. They're not trying to occupy land. They're just trying to get out.
So Cameron, we've got the geophysics here from Le Pinetaire.
Yeah, so you can see where we've run the geophysics. This is the main part was the orchard. We've got another area here, which the American positions were here, and also on the other side of the field. It's all the access we had from landowners to access. This was our main focus though. This was the area, the American 78 field artillery, and you can see the large portions of readings of magnetometry that are coming up in these fields, all showing foxhole or high concentrate metal concentrations.
What do you think you might have here, guys? Is it perhaps like a foxhole or something?
Yeah, fingers crossed it's a foxhole, but we're uncertain at the moment.
It looks like you've got quite a depth there.
Well, we think because this half of the trench we noticed was a lot more compact and sort of clay-like.
Yeah.
And the side was loose, so
Yeah.
loose generally means pre-dug.
Absolutely, yeah. So, that kind of lip there is perhaps could be the edge of the foxhole.
Yeah.
And that's why it's loose going down.
You see even our difference.
Yeah. Yeah, you can almost see the edge of the cut, can't you? Yeah.
So Le Pinetaire, you mentioned that there were howitzer shells. Obviously, unexploded ammunition is going to be a bit of a hazard on a Second World War battlefield. How are you going about managing all of that and dealing with that if you do find it?
We have a protocol and a risk assessment and an officer in charge, really, that gives us an idea of what to do in those sort of situations. I give a brief at the beginning of the project, which has a whole list of all the dangerous items that we could come across. Anything extremely dangerous, which has been highlighted to leave alone, we leave it alone, and we flag it, and we put a big hazard tape around that area, and we call the police and the demonage, the bomb disposal, and they come and collect it and dispose of it. Majority of it goes that way. Anything that we find that is not so hazardous, so artillery shells that have been fired, lots of things like that, which is still munitions and cartridges, and even live bullets is still munitions, but the hazard risk level is very low. Rather than just rebury them again, we wanted to record them and get their ID and serial numbers, things like that. It really helps with what we're looking at. Then I can place it probably to a different artillery position, where it came from, things like that. But most of it we leave behind, and it's made safe by reburying.
Cameron's team is made up of an international group of volunteers from across the world, and I wanted to find out what had motivated them to join the team. Are you guys sort of archaeologists, or have you got a background in archaeology at all?
Yeah, this I'm actually
Matt has.
doing this for my internship for the University of Nevada. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Okay, great.
Yeah, I got a special permission to do this as part of my conflict archaeology.
And we're all from the same part of the world. In fact, Craig's dad and my dad would have worked together.
Really?
But, we didn't know.
Small world, yeah, really small world.
My life story basically is that I've been an archaeologist for 12 years in the US, and I've been crew chiefing, and essentially that's kind of what I'm doing here. Cameron gives us the directive, and then I have this awesome team here, and we come out and get things done. I have the 3 metal detectorists, and they each have, actually every single one of the diggers is an archaeologist.
Right.
So they're actually able to go around and thoroughly identify things, which is super useful.
Archaeologists, historical enthusiasts, philanthropists.
So I'm here with my partner. We do archaeology over in the States.
Oh, right,
We
okay.
heard about this from another person who came last year. And like, how often do you get to come over and actually work with U.S. soldiers?
Yeah.
We don't have that as much over in the States.
No,
so,
funnily enough.
yeah.
Moving on from Le Pinetière, further south down the D38 road, Cameron and his team are investigating another crucial intersection site at La Valta Lane. So Cameron, we've just come up the road to the next crossroads. Can you just tell us a little bit about what actually happened here?
So just down from the last site, La Pinetaire, we're now at the crossroads called La Valta Lane. La Valta Lane, much the same as La Pinetaire, was picketed by American artillery units, basically putting covering fire on what's going on around. They were also aware that the Germans were coming this way too, so they had a defensive position here too. It wasn't very strong, but it was in these 4 fields that you can see around us and a small forward position down here.
And there was a big contingent of tanks and paratroopers as well, and miscellaneous units led by Lieutenant Colonel von der Heint, the 6th Parachute Regiment. And he sort of got this amorphous bag of retreating German units and thought, we're going to push down this road at La Valta Lane. The Americans saw them coming, but the American units were so small, the German units coming at them were so large, they panicked a bit. So they went to ground. Their plan was that as the Germans were on the road, the Americans either side of them basically ambushed them from the top and from the front to just maximum damage as possible. Because these guys are 2nd SS Panzer, 17th SS Panzer, 8th Parachute Regiment, these are hardened combat units. And so they were not going to stop at that point. They were going to regroup and they were going to counterattack. So we're almost verging on a battle here rather than an ambush.
Whilst written and oral accounts of the battle exist, very little is known about the exact locations of the combat, and Cameron's team are trying to fill in the blanks through archaeology. And simple techniques reveal startling details about the battle and the men who fought it.
Back in the day of training in all this, I'd run specific transects on areas. I've kind of given that up for this because it's just big, broad areas. So I just let them wander, but with a focus. So we're basically going to do the entire field across it this way and that way, and they pick up anomalies and then concentrations. It's the concentrations we're after. So when American units are going into action, they usually group into an area and they clean out their rifles. So all their extra live rounds fall on the ground and they put in a fresh clip of ammunition. They know that they're going to go into action with a full clip of ammunition. And we can see where they've dropped all their rounds along the hedge line before they've gone in.
Amazing.
So we know that the American position was over in that field at the crossroads.
Yep.
And we know that the German column was coming up this road. And one of the things that we were trying to answer was, where do they get stopped? Because we know the Americans stopped them seeing these trees here and coming across this way. And the fact is, you know that the soldiers are not going to put themselves in an open field firing. We're thinking possibly there may have been a hedgerow right along here based on where the firing positions are. So we're going to have our metal detectorists go that way and see if we can locate any more in case they spread the line out.
Let's see what you've got. Oh, it's come out already.
Yep, there you go.
Oh, so that's that looks like an unfired round, is it?
That's an unfired round. It's a German 7.92 unfired round. This suggests that there were Germans in the middle of the field, and generally you think they would be trying to find cover, so could well have been a hedgerow here.
And then just recently, these finds here tend to be on the more personal side.
Okay.
So we're finding things like a tube of German cheese and stuff like that. So
is it still edible, do you think?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, fair enough.
I wouldn't recommend it.
No one's going to try it?
No, well, we've had some volunteers.
This hedgerow is just absolutely typical of the bocage hedgerows that you get in this part of Normandy. And you can see how it just lends itself to defence. You've got this steep, thick bank with the hedgerow on top. And you can imagine, you know, sheltering down here, firing through the hedgerow at the enemy that are over there. It's no wonder that the Allies struggled to capture territory in this ground, because every field becomes a fortress.
Further south down the D38 road is the D610 Crossroads. This is one of the largest sites that Cameron and his team are investigating.
So Cameron, we've just come up the road to the D610 Crossroads, which is the third site you've been looking at this year.
That's right, yeah.
The site of one of the biggest engagements actually in this area.
In this position were the HQ positions really of the 2nd Armoured Division. So there was a mixed bag of Tank Regiment HQ and Armoured Infantry HQ on all these different fields.
Yeah.
And they put pickets on these crossroads, and the Germans were basically coming down this road, coming from Rancy. They're not trying to take these positions, they're just trying to get out. And so this was more of a battle. All the other crossroads that we've seen and we've worked on were more like night skirmishes. They were big enough, but they weren't in the size of this one. This was huge. So you had 2,500 plus German infantry coming down this road, armed and ready to go. And there were 2nd SS Panzer and 17th SS Panzer Grenadiers. And the Germans basically went straight through. They knocked off this outpost that was here, basically that corner and that corner. The outpost then retreated to the flanks, to the sides, and the Germans went straight through the middle. But they also went through that field as well, the HQ field, their tanks, and they set fire to all the headquarters, American headquarters vehicles in that field. 8 or 9 vehicles were all blown up. We're finding evidence of that today.
Seems like there's a scattered tank here, it fits there, and that hole right over there as well.
Is there kind of any indication as to the nationality of this vehicle?
As far as we know, based on location, we would assume it's American, but we don't have anything yet.
Whoever was wearing that has a headache. I think. Well, he's got some, so he.
I've had some American helmets. The
Right.
thickness seems right, and some of it looks like olive drab. But the way it's bent up, it doesn't look natural for either side to me.
No.
So it's
You are
casually.
complaining about something machine.
Yeah. What do you?
Another little bit.
Well, can you find some more pieces so we can identify it better?
I'm sorry, I'm trying.
Well,
I'm very trying.
Yeah. Well, I'm being very patient.
Yes.
Join a thriving worldwide community of Time Team fans on Patreon.
Our new target is to reach 15,000 worldwide supporters on Patreon by the end of 2025. This will enable us to continue expanding the Time Team world with more digs and greater access than ever before.
Cameron, we've got a few finds laid out here from the project, the various sites this year. Really interesting array of stuff. Do you want to just kind of talk us through a little bit about each of the finds and what they mean?
Every different crossroads pretty much got this sort of material with it. We're finding a lot of these. These are 30 caliber ammunition lids, basically from a box of 30 cal ammunition, and they've peeled the lid off and discarded the lid.
So this is American?
Definitely American, yeah, US for sure. And some in terrible condition, that's not so bad. This is a really interesting item. That is a machine gunner's, what do you call it, toolkit, I guess. It's like a leather pouch that they wear, usually for an MG34 or a MG42 machine gun, heavy or light machine guns.
Yeah. So
and they
German.
have all their tools, definitely German.
Yeah.
It's the firing bolt and it's the other tools and mechanism in there. It's pretty unusual to get the leather associated with it, so we'll clean that up a bit better. Yeah. But that's a nice find. American spoon, it's got 1941 written on the bottom, obviously been run over by a tractor or a tank, you never know. We found a few items like that, American personal equipment. But this is your standard 30 cal bullet, American. Now the difference is that's a German, same, so that's a German 7.29 millimeter, but it's more, has a high iron content, so it's going to corrode a lot more. So that's how we can usually tell the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite clear to see the difference there, isn't it?
Yeah. So again, that's been fired at a position, at a point. These are 50 cal machine gun cartridges. The 50 caliber is a huge beast, and they fire them from big mounted machine guns, and they can really cause some damage. We find them on every single crossroads, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. So obviously they're positioned there from mounted machine guns from the top of half tracks, or even mounted low on the ground. And these, which is a great anomaly, and we get a lot of this around here. There's a certain layers of archaeology. So there's the battle, the 1944 layer, and then there's the reenactment layer, or the homage layer, of people coming and reenacting the events. And we find these are reenactor dummy rounds. So they're blank rounds, and we find these a lot. And at different periods, I think this dates from the 1970s, and this is also probably from the 1960s. But we've got also from the 1990s, and I think we'll probably get from the next commemoration, we'll get another whole layer too.
And it's not just the French soil that bears the scars and memories of war.
I mean, what's pivotal to all these operations, really, from an archaeological perspective, is to always chat to the landowners, because the thing is in France, which is a little bit different to the UK, is that the land stays within the family forever. So you often find that the landowners in 1944 were the same landowners today. So same with this field that we found with the D610, is that the landowner that we spoke to was a little boy at the time. He was there. He remembers all the American vehicles all lined up on the roads.
Le 23 juillet.
Le 23 juillet, the 23rd of July 1944. There was a massive amount of action here, and not this part of the building.
28, je me rappelle plus trop, la date.
Okay, so somewhere around that week, 23rd, 28th of July. And because of the bombardment, the buildings burnt.
Right. Je vous ai fait voir le trou d'obus derrière.
Oui. And there's a shell hole in the building behind.
Le frangin, là, et là. Et il est revenu jusqu'à la maison, et il a dit, je suis blessé là, là. Alors papa, lui, déshabillé, pansement, un garrot, et là, les chaussures, et chercher américain. Il a été chercher les Américains. Il savait que les Américains étaient à 1 kilomètre à peu près de la ferme. Les Américains sont venus à un point déterminé. Et là, ils ont donné le brancard. Attendez ici pour faire tuer pour votre fils.
Ah, bien.
Bon, c'était normal, en quelque sorte. Hein. Alors, le père est venu avec son brancard. Quand il a passé dans la ferme du voisin, là, le voisin, il avait fait la guerre de 14. Il a bien reconnu que c'était un brancard. Il a interviewé papa en lui demandant qu'est-ce qui se passait, quoi. En 2 mots. Il a dit, mais qu'est-ce qui pourrait vous aider? Ben, papa a dit, on va se débrouiller, quoi. Il a dit, attends-moi, je m'en viens avec toi. Alors, il est venu avec papa et sur le brancard, le fiston. Alors, le long du chemin, pendant 400 mètres, alors,
oui. Pas rigolo au moment.
Non.
Non.
Très, très sérieux. Danger, danger.
Back in the fields, the finds are becoming more personal, and there is confusion over a badge that has come up.
I've just this minute lifted that.
Oh, wow.
But it says machine gun on it.
Machine, and it's got the iron cross on it.
It has an iron cross, but then it says machine gun. Surely Germans did not write that in English.
In English. That's interesting,
That's
isn't it?
something weird.
There's the pin on the back
on the
there
back.
as well.
So,
I think we'll have to get Cameron to look
we
at that.
need a clever person to look at that.
We do need
yes.
a specialist to look at that,
Yes,
don't we?
indeed, yes.
Wow.
So that's just come out, but there is something else down there.
It's definitely a sort of container,
It's a thing, isn't it?
or it's a bit small for a helmet, isn't it?
It's
It's
mess
a
tin.
mess tin.
And it's got a bullet wound through it.
Wow.
Exit wound.
Or maybe shrapnel or something.
Could be something nasty and sharp has gone through that.
Do we know if this would be American or German?
You're keeper of these things.
I own several of them. I would say American.
And where do you carry that, you say?
With the usual uniform, they'd have the haversack and the meat can pack would be right about here.
Right, so...
But that doesn't mean he was wearing it at the time.
No.
If they're in battle, they usually drop their bags.
That's true, but that's a clear impact through there, isn't it?
Yes, I would say that. We'll know better when we clean it up a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, amazing.
After a quick clean and an internet search, the mysterious badge seems to have been identified.
Oh, it says machine gun.
That one says machine gun.
So it's the exact same as the one that we've got here.
Yeah. So I feel pretty confident in
that.
that.
Yeah. That's incredible. So what we're saying is, we saw the iron cross on this earlier and said, oh, it looks a bit German maybe, but it's got this writing in English, and now it's been cleaned up and had a little look at it.
Often they would hang additional...
That's it. You can see where you might have multiple things hanging down here. So it's effectively an American marksmanship badge. You've got, you say, a glove in there.
What it looks like.
Oh yeah, you can kind of see the thumb coming out there or something.
It's just
You've got something very cool here.
Really do. So this is going to be a German meal kit.
Wow.
So you got the fork, you would have had a spoon and a knife, and then on the back, you can see a TMS 41, and then down here you can see a small swastika.
And so that's interesting though, if that's a German eating kit here, do we think maybe this is a German vehicle that's got this far?
That's, who knows? Back then it was the quote is war is hell, so you have no idea what was going on.
Battlefield finds usually speak of war, weapons and combat, but very occasionally they can carry you into extraordinary moments of heroism and personal sacrifice. At La Chapelle, the final crossroads site the team are investigating, their discoveries are revealing one such moment in astonishing detail.
I mean, what's fascinating about these projects, I mean, it's all good and well, the grand strategy and military tactics and historical narrative, but they're all individuals, they're all people like you and I at these places. Very rarely individuals get mentioned in combat reports, but this guy did, Captain Simar, and he was situated at La Chapelle. The context of La Chapelle, Saint-Denis-la-Gare was picketed by the Americans, then tried to take it over by the Germans. this battle at the D610 where German columns broke through. They also took Saint-Denis-la-Gare on that night. And the objective was to just drive straight to Gavry, get over the river to get out. But again, they're being fired at, it's the middle of the night, they're shell-shocked, they're confused, they're panicking, the Germans that broke through. So one German column of 11 vehicles, instead of going straight ahead at the crossroads, they turned right. They turned right into another American roadblock, quite by accident. So they traveled down D13 to a little hamlet called La Chapelle, which was picketed, weirdly enough, by the same artillery unit at La Pinetière, the 78th Field Artillery Unit, and they were basically in a support role, firing on German columns further north. So they weren't expecting any German columns to hit them at all. The forward defense of that area was manned by an anti-tank gun and a couple of infantry machine guns, Americans machine guns, and Captain Simar was interviewing German prisoners that were just following in, just coming in out of the hedgerows because of all this action that was going on at the time. There was a small counterattack to the north of their position, but it was just basically just picking up stragglers. And the occasional American vehicle was also coming in damaged, on fire, saying there's a big action up ahead. So the forward pickets were unaware that there was a German column coming at them. Any column that they could see, a vehicle, they just assumed they were American. So this 11 vehicle of German column comes down the road. The forward American pickets just wave it through. The Germans just think they're Germans and they just go straight through. Captain Simard sees that they're wearing different sort of helmets. And so he comes out onto the road and he says, "Who are you?" And the lead German vehicle went, "Was ist das?" and realizes, oh my God, I'm in American position. So Simard saw that immediately, got onto his M3 half-track, mounted his 50 caliber machine gun and opened fire point blank onto the German vehicle. Once he did that, it basically set up a signal to everybody else in that forward area that there's Germans in the midst, and so they all opened up on the German column. The entire 11 vehicles of that German column was obliterated where it stood. I don't think many Germans survived that. There were a lot of captured Germans from that area too, but I think the majority of the personnel from those vehicles were burnt out within their vehicles. It was absolute carnage.
And because Captain Simard was so close, he was killed in that action, and his half-track that he was in was incinerated and blew up. And in the survey, we surveyed all this area, we found the area of Simard's vehicle all burnt out and surrounded by 50 caliber machine gun rounds where he'd been mounting that 50 caliber firing them. So wow. We found where he was in the landscape during that time.
And that's incredible, isn't it? You know, to narrow it down to knowing where one individual man was and his role in that whole story and how it unfolded.
Yeah.
It really shows you how much archaeology can add. You know, we can have the written accounts, we can have the maps, we can look at the landscape, but actually the individual artifacts are telling such an important story about all those men caught up in this battle. We're coming to the end of our time here in Normandy, and it's been a phenomenal experience to see the work that Cameron and his team have been doing here, and spread across all these different sites, the volumes of material that are coming out of the ground and the information that that's revealing, not only about the kind of overarching action of these battles, but of the individuals who are caught up in it, their personal possessions, and some of the heroic actions which have been performed in this area. The munitions, the exploded shells, the empty casings. It's just a visceral reminder of the intensity of the fighting, particularly at this crossroads where the big engagement occurred between the 2,500 Germans and a couple of hundred Americans. The evidence for destroyed vehicles is extensive. It's unlike any battlefield I've been on. It's quite remarkable, really, that they've only just scratched the surface. And I'm sure there is a lot of work here to keep them busy for a number of years. So this project has really shone a light onto what is an understudied part of the Normandy campaign, perhaps one of the most pivotal operations of the Second World War. As that wartime generation is sadly passing away, those who fought in the battles and the civilians that lived here, it's really down to archaeology to be the mechanism through which we start to tell their stories.
Join Time Team on Patreon to access exclusive 3D models, masterclasses, and behind-the-scenes insights.